What's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome to another edition of the Cream City Cast, CreamCityCentral.com's Bucks podcast. Our podcast is presented to you by the Shepherd Express and John E. Drain Realtor with Realty Executives Integrity. Looking to buy a house or condo in Milwaukee? Check them out on Facebook for a great service. John E. Drain Realtor on Facebook with Realty Executives Integrity. I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Cream City Central's Andrew Goodman. And I'm also joined today by Cream City Central's John Turner. What's up, guys?
Yeah, it's good to have you on, John. Welcome to your inaugural edition of the Cream City Cast.
Yep, first one. I'm excited.
Well, we got a pretty good show for you today. We're going to be giving out some superlatives for the Bucks the first half of the season. Currently sitting as the 6th seed, coming off a nice stretch of games here. So should we just jump right into it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ready? All right. So we're going to start off with our MVP. I think it's going to be a pretty unanimous vote. But, Andrew, I'm going to start with you. Who is your MVP of the first half?
It's got to be the Greek Freak. It's got to be Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, you can talk so much about his statistics, averaging almost 28 points per game, go along with 10 rebounds, almost 5 assists, a steal, and a block a game. But for me, his impact stretches far beyond the court. You know, we've seen in years past, like how after games, especially on the road, that, 300 Greek fans will, line up after the game and just pack the stadium and chant his name and serenade him. And, that's really great to see. And, all the young fans, they really look up to Giannis too. So he did put Milwaukee on the map, but just him being such a big role model, I really like that he's really embraced that role for sure. So he's got to be the MVP on and off the court for that as well.
All right. A pretty easy choice, Giannis. John, why don't you just give me a reason why you think Giannis is going to be is the MVP of the first half?
Well, I'd go ahead and say first off that, he's doing what he did last season in terms of the team in most statistical categories. He's second in the NBA right now in PER, only behind the MVP frontrunner James Harden. And, he's doing exactly what he did last year. He's just setting an incredible pace, both on offense and defense. And he's really, been a solid anchor on the defensive end and completely masked all of the deficiencies that kind of Jason Kidd's scheme had, and did a really good job of covering all that up. Dylan, what do you think of him?
I obviously he's the MVP. He's the leader and the heart and soul of this team. This team goes is where Giannis goes. But I look at it, and Giannis is not only becoming a great basketball player, he's becoming just kind of like a cultural staple of Milwaukee and a cultural figure. Like you said, Andrew, with his global aspect he brings to kind of his superstardom as a whole. It's really impressive, and it's really it's incredible how well he maintains himself on the floor. When times get tough and when he needs to get a stop, they push his teammates. He pushes his teammates to go exactly where they need to be, and that's a skill that not every NBA superstar has. Yeah, he doesn't have a jump shot, but the intangible aspect that he brings, and especially to a small market like Milwaukee, there's really no other person that could be perfectly fit for Milwaukee. A humble guy, not really a big light player in his personal time, but when it's playing time, he really shows off and he steps up when the time's right. So there's so many things to talk about Giannis, like what he does for this team. And it's our unanimous choice for our MVP of the first half. So, there's nothing else we can really say other than he's just great.
Yeah.
It's crazy because he's 22.
23, just turned 23.
But, still 22, 23, that's just ridiculous that he's already considered the most transcendent player in the NBA since LeBron James. And, the sky really is a limit, and it's crazy that he's only scratching the surface of what he could actually be in the future.
Yeah, so Giannis, congrats on the MVP for the
Unanimous
first
MVP.
half. Yes, the unanimous.
Yeah,
Hopefully he'll
check
be
the mail for the award.
yeah, hopefully he'll be earning a little bit more prestigious of an MVP award this season or in seasons to come. But moving on to in superlative that we don't have the same answer on, and that is the defensive player of the first half. As we know, the Bucks really struggled under the ex-coaches Jason Kidd's defensive scheme. So I don't think there's any real defensive gems we can remember from that era. But from the Prunty era, that's been pretty good so far. Who is your defensive player of the first half, John?
Well, mine, I'm going to have to go back to Giannis again. I think Giannis is the heart and soul of this defense. And I guess probably not underrated, but a huge impact that he has on the defensive end of the floor is the rim protection that he provides from outside of the center position. There's really only a handful of players out in the league right now that are not a center and still, coming over to, help on the weak side, which is one part of the reasons why I think you see Giannis on a lot of nights not guarding the number one option for the other team, even though he probably could. It's mainly because his presence and, in two long steps, he can be from one end of on the weak side, helping out on the strong side and making a pretty, key block. And that's, I think, why I would give him the defensive player of the first half of the season.
Definitely can agree with you there.
It's kind of crazy how, you'll look at Giannis on the defensive end and he'll be one place in 1 second and then he'll be completely on the opposite end of the court the other second. So, he's got those daddy long legs and arms, go gadget, whatever you want to call it. It's just crazy. He can command all facets of the game. But for me, my defensive player of the first half is definitely Tony Snell. He's been criticized this year after signing a big extension this offseason, but what he brings defensively, his toughness, he's a quiet guy. He goes about his business, but he's usually sticking the opposing player's the best player on the opposing team. So, he's really expunging a lot of effort on the defensive end, and I think that has to do with a little bit of his deficiencies on the offensive end. But I think when you look at it, it's really hard to be displeased with Tony Snell the way he's played defense this year, how he's been holding it down.
Yeah, Andrew, I'd have to say, well, I don't 100% agree with as the best defensive player. I think he's the most underrated defensive player, underrated by Bucks fans. I mean, just because, he gets there, he does his work, he slides his feet. And unlike a lot of the other Bucks players, he doesn't really play passing lanes as much. So you won't see him get those, jump in the passing lane steals, those flashy defensive plays. But he's very solid on ball. He's gonna be able to guard most every perimeter offensive wing player, and I'd agree with you in that fact is where he might not be flashy and he might be underrated because of it, but he definitely 100% always gets the job done.
Absolutely, Tony Snell definitely has been really good defensively this year, and earlier in the year, he was knocking down, if we're talking the whole totality of the first half, he was knocking down that three ball pretty good. I understand it's defensive player of the first half, but you got to be on the court to play defense. So he's got to make shots to get on the court. So I'm gonna go another route. I'm gonna go with John Henson. And I know he's had some questionable games against some of the elite centers in the NBA, but strictly from a rim protector standpoint, John Henson makes a really big impact on the defensive end of the floor on a night-to-night basis. And it might not always be blocks, but he'll definitely be affecting shots, passing lanes, and he's been relatively effective on the glass. I mean, they struggled a lot at the beginning of the year, but they've kind of shorted up, I suppose, because they're not really running around as much and they have more time to box out under Prunty's system. Henson, he doesn't have great stats by any mean, but 6.9 rebounds a game for in a career year for John Henson at this point with starters minutes. I think I've just been really impressed with him on the defensive end of the floor just because of the rim protection, not necessarily the physicality aspect that it takes to play post, but to defend like Dwight Howard or something like that. But pretty good otherwise in that. So I'm going to go with John Henson for that.
Yeah, he's definitely played up to his contract and even beyond that, in my opinion. So it's really nice to see John Henson really have a true breakout season after a few years of, inconsistency. So that brings us to the sixth man of the first half. Dylan, who's your sixth man of the year for the Bucks in the first half of the season?
So my sixth man of the quarter of the first half is Jabari Parker, coming the first man off the bench in the latter part of the first half. There hasn't really been too many flashy moments by Jabari. I know he had that nice dunk. I think it was against Atlanta on the left side where he dunked it in over two guys. That was nice. But he's really just been offensively very consistent this year. His jumpers look as improved as it was before he got hurt before, which was kind of my concern that it was going to kind of slow down or if it's going to reach his ceiling. But he's really been knocking down the shots pretty well, 9.3 points per game in his 6 games. But he's shooting 46%. And for a guy that's been out of the NBA for the past 2 years, minus, a month or so, or the first part of the season, I think Jabari Parker's probably the sixth man of the first half just because of the potential he brings for the second half. I know I'm kind of altering the question a little bit, but I don't know. That's just kind of my take on it.
Yeah, Jabari has also looked good on the defensive end as well. I know he still has a long way to go, but it's definitely good to see that he's definitely making the strides coming back from 2 torn ACLs. But for me, sixth man, definitely got to give it to Malcolm Brogdon, although he did suffer that unfortunate quadricep tear, I believe. He's coming off the bench. The Bucks tried to stagger him alongside Eric Bledsoe, but it just didn't really work that well. So I think Malcolm Brogdon definitely is better suited coming off the bench. And he was playing starters minutes anyway. He was playing 30 minutes per game, averaging 13 points per game, 3 rebounds and 3 assists, almost a steal per game. But you look at his percentages as well, shooting 48% from the floor and almost 38% from deep. So the way he was able to come off the bench and really anchor the offense, and he's also a great defender too. So the Bucks are really going to miss him. They've missed him in the few weeks that he's been out, but it's definitely a big loss for sure. But he would definitely be my sixth man of the year.
Do you think that sixth man's going to be his role when he comes back? Because I know that's kind of the next phase of this whole thing. Everything's going well now, but as Jabari's minutes increased, as Tony Snell, kind of that whole mystery. What's your guys' kind of take on that, John? I'll start with you. John? That's fine. I can edit it. Andrew.
Hello? Yo, guys. What's up?
You're good. All right.
Yo,
I can edit.
I can edit that out, right?
Yeah. So just
what was the question again?
I don't remember how I worded it. I think the question was, what do you think Malcolm Brogdon's role is when he comes back, on the bench or, in the starting lineup? So just touch on that. You can start whenever, and I'll start it right when I finished it. So go ahead.
All right, here we go. Yeah, I'd say that Malcolm's brought. Let me restart that. All right, here we go. One more try. All right. Yeah, I'd say that Malcolm Brogdon's role, once he gets back, probably would be to be inserted back in the starting lineup. I think before it was an issue having Malcolm in the starting lineup just because it left the bench so bare and there was no, playmaking of any kind. But now that you have Jabari back, I think adding in Malcolm Brogdon to the starting lineup, further, gives your that starting lineup, more potency, more ball handling, which isn't necessarily an issue, and it kind of keeps the same spacing as Tony Snell. Maybe not as much spacing, but he still provides enough spacing for people like Giannis to have lanes to drive and everything like that. So if I were the coach, I'd keep him in the starting lineup. But to be honest, it's almost 50-50 for me. If you put him on the bench and you have Brogdon and Jabari coming off the bench, that's a pretty lethal second unit you got there. So I think you could go both ways on it.
Yeah, just looking at it in the timetable from when he was going to recover from his injury puts him about a week or so ahead of the playoffs, so you're going to have to work him back in. But definitely you want to keep him from coming off the bench. You know, the Bucks arguably have one of the worst benches in the NBA, but they've been playing better since Jabari Parker came back. But you just need his scoring presence and his defensive presence coming off the bench. But even if he does come off the bench, he's going to be playing, you know, north of 25 minutes per game. So essentially he'll be playing starters minutes regardless of where he's playing.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Who's John? Who's your sixth man of the first half?
My sixth man of the first half, I had to go with my man Sterling Brown, who's had a very nice season so far for a second-round rookie. I think that his peskiness on defense is really making valuable contributions on that end of the floor. And he's shooting 37% from three-point range this year, which is very respectable. And, you know, that's enough to keep defenders, you know, on you and create enough spacing. I also love what he's doing on the glass. His rebounding percentage, or the percent of times that he pulls down a rebound on the court, is at 11.2%, which is actually the exact same as center Thon Maker, and it's only a little bit behind John Henson and Giannis Antetokounmpo. So besides Giannis and the two centers, he's pulling down more rebounds than anyone else on the team. And I think that's noticeable. And he's also getting steals on the team. He's only behind Eric Bledsoe in steals on the team. So there's, he brings a ton of energy on the court. And he's proven that, he's not only can hit the shot on offense, but in addition on offense, he can put the ball on the floor. And, he's not giving you that mirrors a heart attack every time the ball touches the floor. You feel kind of comfortable, and he can do enough around the rim to finish against second units. But I'm really pleasantly surprised with his play this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely fit into that role, and he almost brings like a certain kind of swag to the team. I mean, a 3-and-D guy that just goes out there and balls. I mean, if you want to learn a little bit more about Sterling Brown, we have an article on Cream City Central called Sterling Brown, a Certified MFer. So, I mean, if you want to learn about the Batman himself, I mean, just go ahead and check out that article on Cream City Central. Segueing now to some a little not regular superlatives like you see in like the NBA awards, but a couple other things. Unsung hero. Andrew, do you want to give everyone that?
Definitely. My unsung hero this year is definitely got to be Chris Middleton. He's definitely getting overshadowed by how great Giannis Antetokounmpo has been playing. But if you look at his stats, 20 points per game, 5 rebounds per, also 4 assists, chipping in 1 steal as well. His three-point shooting is down. He's at 34% right now, but I fully expect that to go up as the season goes on. And he is shooting an honest 46% from the floor overall in about 37 minutes per game. But he's been much scrutinized this season on Bucks Twitter, and I really don't know why. There are only a handful of players in the NBA averaging 25 and 4. If you look at Klay Thompson and Golden State, it's practically, granted, I'm not saying they're the same player, but they're averaging pretty much the same thing. So I think Chris Middleton deserves a lot more recognition than he gets for the career year he's putting on all facets.
All-star snub? Question mark?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely worth the consideration, but
consideration.
I mean, yeah, it's just one of those things where he's always going to be that guy who's going to be underrated. We've been saying he's been underrated for years now, and I really don't see that much changing, but I think he embraces that role, sort of like the silent assassin, just going about his business, but he's putting up a career year across the board. I really don't see why people are unhappy with the play of Chris Middleton.
I would agree with that segment right there. I'd say that between Bucks Twitter, I do think that he is underrated, but it's understandable. He takes, analytically, he has a very questionable shot chart. He takes a lot of tough twos, and that it makes a lot of analytic fans really frustrated. And when he's not hitting his shots, which this year has been way more often than you would like. When he's not hitting his shots, he doesn't look like a good player. He's taking the tough shots, and when he's making them, you're saying, all right, we love to see made shots, but when he's missing tough shots, it is, it just makes your head hurt, and it's pretty frustrating. But
a lot of his tough shots are. No, I'm with you on that 100%. A lot of his tough shots are honestly just when the ball isn't moving, it always gets stuck in Middleton's hand. Mm-hmm. And they just say, all right, well, here you go, Chris. Go figure out how to do it. And that's what he does. He'll catch it. He'll do 1-2 dribbles. He'll start to pump back you down. He'll turn and fade. And if it goes in, great. And if it doesn't, what do you expect? They're like in a half-court offense where there's no motion, and you waste the first 14 seconds just dribbling around. I mean, that's just kind of like I'm agreeing with you because like he's put in these terrible situations for him where it's like, all right, Chris, like go figure it out. And he's done well in it because like, I mean, he obviously averages 20 points a game, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also think a lot of the problem was Jabari Parker still rehabbing, so he still had to shoulder the load a lot on the offensive end. But I think as Jabari works his way back, it'll be better for Chris Middleton.
Yeah. All right. Well, John, I think your unsung hero shares the same name as you.
Yes, my unsung hero is John Horst. I think there was, a lot of unnecessary hate thrown towards John Horst as a result of the not. All right. Well, all right. I just cut out again. Sorry. So I'm just gonna swing it back and restart the whole segment.
Yep.
Sorry about that. I don't know what's up with my computer. My unsung hero is John Horst. I think John Horst got a lot of unnecessary flack towards the beginning of the season because of the huge hurricane storm that was of signing the new GM and all the questionable things that went along with that. And so I think, since the signing, you could say that he's done an almost perfect job. Some might question Tony Snell's contract, but, it's tough to let a player like that go. And the $11 million probably was a little bit lower than what the top bidder was going to offer. So you can't be too upset with that. Then you have the Eric Bledsoe trade, which was kind of a no-brainer. And, he picked a spot. He didn't try and jump into that trade too early. He waited until, Phoenix really realized the market was that low on him, and he got, unquestionably a great deal on Eric Bledsoe. And then you have the Tyler Zeller trade, which maybe you didn't need to give up a second rounder. You could have just waited till buyout season and get someone else. But, Tyler Zeller so far has played, decent minutes. He's showed that he's, a lot more capable on both ends than Thon Maker. So you can't be too upset. And so I'd just say up until this point, John Horst has done an excellent job. And, in addition to that, I think his savvy with the two-way players has been great. The kind of loophole that he found of, playing his two-way players, a ton of games, more than half of the games in the beginning of the season. And then when they're done with their, 45-day, cut them. And then you can get a whole new guy for, a little fraction less of the 45 days, but you still get a whole new player for new games. And he's kind of used those players as, just 2 full-time roster spots. And
did it cut out?
I think so.
All right, well, that's fine. Yeah, well, I think I'd have to say my unsung hero is Sterling Taser Brown. He is like John said earlier, he's really been impressive from just really coming out of nowhere. But the Bucks have done well on their last couple second round picks, so I'm not really surprised that he has done well. He's kind of a 3-and-D guy, and like I said, he has a bunch of kind of little swag to his game, and he's taken that role of having those bench minutes and kind of making the best out of them, because he could, like most Bucks players do on their bench, they get minutes and then they just kind of falter from that. But I don't know. It appears we have lost John Turner on the Cream City cast due to connection issues. But me and Andrew are going to finish out strong these last couple superlatives here. So let's just jump right on to the next one. Most improved. Andrew, who do you got for that one?
Yeah, it's been short and sweet, but definitely Tyler Zeller. He's come in. His first game against the Knicks was awful, but then again, that was his first game. Didn't even have practice or shoot around to get through. So, we'll let that slide. But his physicality on the defensive end, he's not going to be a, superb rim protector, but, just his ability to snag boards, alter some shots. That's definitely a welcome sign for the Bucks. But offensively, he's a terrific screener, which is going to create a lot of space for the Bucks, and that's what they need is great screeners. And also, he's shown great chemistry so far with Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's a great role man. We've seen Giannis throw him some lobs, so I'm very impressed with what I've seen from Tyler Zeller so far.
Absolutely. And the most improved is John Turner's Wi-Fi connection, because we got him back, baby. Let's go.
Man, I don't know what's going on. I got this new computer, and it's giving me all kind of fits. But
hey.
Better than paying $1 billion for a new MacBook. So
that's true. That's very true. I'm gonna roll on my most improved. I'm gonna have to go with Tony Snell, as we stated earlier, as Andrew's defensive player of the first half. I know Tony Snell kind of faltered a little bit in the second half of the first half, but in the beginning of the season, he was one of the leaders in 3-point field goal percentage. He was playing great defense, as he has basically the whole first half, and he was knocking down big shots. And that's kind of something we've never seen from Tony Snell, even if you go back to the days with his cornrows in Chicago. I mean, he wasn't a shooter. I mean, he came out of New Mexico as a shooter, but he never really put it together with the Bulls. But that initial first stretch of games that he had really kind of did wonders in what I said is the most improved player of the first half. John, I see you've kept with the trend of picking people that share the first name as you. So who is your most improved player?
Well, I got John Henson. Coming into this season, John Henson was, unquestionably one of the most unpopular players on the Bucks from Bucks fans. And, at the last trade deadline, people were asking for first-round picks from the Bucks just to get rid of his $11 million contract, which isn't a crazy amount of money. And so to be asking for picks, which is pretty crazy, but what he's brought this year has been something that a lot of Bucks fans just did not see coming. He's been, very solid on the defensive end. He's always shown that he could get to blocking shots. But this year, he's been a little bit more disciplined in terms of reaching, going out to reach for blocks that, he probably can't get no matter what. And then on the offensive end, I think that's where he's had his biggest change. He was an absolute negative prior to this season. And this year, he's shown that, if he gets the ball down low, his little lefty hook is enough of a weapon to kind of get it done. And he's not just going to completely waste a good Giannis pass, or if he finds deep post position, he's shown that has the ability to convert it and finish it. And that's something that you just did not see prior to this year. So I think that big revelation on his offensive game has propelled him to, he might not be worth his $11 million contract this year, but he's not too far behind it, and you're not too disappointed, and he's getting it done, which is something that before this season, you wouldn't be able to say.
Yeah, serviceable at this point.
Yep.
So that's all you can ask for. You're not going to have amazing players at every position, not necessarily, but just kind of, I guess, the segues. John, into your biggest disappointment. He's kind of filled that void that we'd hope Thon Maker would kind of fill. So do you want to talk about your biggest disappointment, Thon Maker?
Yeah, so for biggest disappointment, it was indeed Thon Maker. And after last season, and especially in the playoffs, we saw a lot of promising flashes from Thon. Being able to hit that three ball, which was just so important to the Bucks, especially last year, a team that needed spacing. So adding that three ball and then showing a little bit of quickness on the defensive end, and all of that has kind of it's still kind of there, but his negatives just far, far outweigh the positives at this point. His shooting this year, it's gotten so shaky that halfway through the season he was taking those long mid-range twos, which you don't want. I mean, you'd rather take the extra point just a couple steps behind it, but he's not even hitting the threes. And then you can't ask him to finish anything down low. So where I was saying with John Henson, where he was going to be able to finish a lot of shots around the rim, Thon is just the exact opposite. Too many times players are leaving him in an excellent position, right on the block, right where an NBA center should be able to finish a shot. And Thon is going up way too weak to the rim, and he's not converting nearly enough looks around the rim. And then on defense, he still just looks lost way too often. He's in the wrong position, and which leads me to the last part. The worst part about him is defensive rebounding. I alluded to it earlier. Sterling Brown has the same rebounding percentage as Thon Maker. That's a bad thing. Thon's 7'1", and it's for the most part a result of his frail body. He's still nowhere close to big enough to deal with a lot of these centers, and he just gets eaten alive on the defensive and offensive glass by a lot of these big bruising Steven Adams type centers. And really the only reason he gets saved a lot of the time is because he has Giannis on the court next to him often to help with that rebounding. So I just think, from a second-year player, he made the flashes that you want a rookie to make. And then the second year, you're looking for those flashes to, continue to be there and see, solid improvements from his negatives. And it just has not been that. As a Bucks fan, I don't know what Thon's future is. I was such a big fan last year, so much so that I got a Thon Maker jersey. And now I'm questioning, is he even going to be a serviceable center at this point? It's way too early to tell, and I'd still lean yes at this point. But it has not looked great this year.
Yep. Hopefully you have the receipt still on that jersey. But Andrew, I've been waiting for this moment since we started the Cream City Cast, and you took your chairperson as the Fire Kid bandwagon driver. So here it is. Please tell me who your biggest disappointment of the first half is.
All right, I'll give you one guess. You guessed Jason Kidd. You are 100% correct because Jason Kidd was definitely the biggest disappointment this season. Coming into the season, the Bucks had these super, super high expectations. They still do, obviously. But, when they fired Jason Kidd, they were one game over 500. You look at his years previous, his first year, they were pretty good, took the league by storm with how they, did that whole trapping defense. But, the NBA is a game of evolution and good coaches make changes. And, he refused to really make any significant change on the defensive end in the 3.5, 4 years that he was here. And that was essentially his biggest downfall, of course. Because, the Bucks were just giving up threes at such an alarming rate. Their defense was getting blitzed night in and night out. And, of course, the minute they fire Jason Kidd, what happens? Their defense gets infinitely times better. They're already, they're up to 17th in the league right now in terms of defensive rating. Granted, that's been aided by a pretty easy schedule. But, the Bucks have struggled against some really bad teams, under Jason Kidd. The Hornets put up like 130 points. Utah Jazz did as well. So, there were just a lot of defensive breakdowns, defensive lapses, a lot of disappointment on the defensive end, and I think that was far too much to look past. And I think that's definitely why Jason Kidd is the biggest disappointment this season.
Yeah, my biggest disappointment is probably just because of my extremely high expectations for him. But DJ Wilson. Showing flashes in the G League with some pretty impressive performances against that level of competition. gives me somewhat some hope that, you know, it's just a rookie and he didn't really have an extensive role at Michigan. So, I mean, he's just getting his footing under him. But, you know, I trust a lot in the Bucks training staff, the strength and conditioning, and, you know, their skill coaches that they're working with DJ. But I've just kind of expected more of an impact from him. And that's even just getting a couple minutes and getting some good run in. Like, he's not even getting out there in garbage time, which is kind of the alarming thing. But I don't know. He has a lot of flashes. He has a lot of tools that can help you in the NBA. Does he have one tool that he's really, really good at? I don't think so.
No.
I think it's more of a kind of a lot of perspective, collective parts that probably warranted him getting drafted 17. I know he kind of shot up a lot of GM's draft boards at the end in the home stretch there at the draft. But, I mean, it's just another Bucks type of guy and like an athletic freak who just needs a little seasoning. And, you know, is every player going to be a Giannis Antetokounmpo? I don't think so. I think he's a pretty special player there. So I think we maybe need to start drafting a little bit more player-ready kind of players. I mean, you look at Brogdon, I mean, and Sterling Brown. Those are two guys that maybe their ceilings aren't extremely high, but you know what you're going to get from them, and they're ready to go right now. So, you know, the developmental aspect of DJ is intriguing, but kind of the performance to this point has been a little disappointing in my eyes.
Yeah, I would argue that with, you know, if Giannis is the extreme of drafting raw, athletic, tall, long guys, I think DJ Wilson very well could be the other extreme. You know, you said he's shown flashes. I haven't exactly seen any flashes, to be honest. And, you know, it's kind of similar
I saw it in the G League. Like, he had nice games in the G League. He obviously hasn't played much. So.
I would have a good game in the G League, too. But
hey, Brandon Jennings just put up 31. Hey, let's go.
Shout out to BJ, that's my guy. But yeah, no, just to wrap up your point on DJ Wilson, you know, I kind of see a lot of what I saw of Rashad Vaughn. You know, Rashad Vaughn is rookie year. There looked like there was a couple things where you'd be like, oh, if he gets his three-point shooting up a little bit better, maybe he improves his dribble, maybe he does this, maybe his defensive awareness gets better. You know, and you can kind of envision a good player from the shell that you have of their rookie year. But like Rashad Vaughn, I just think there is way too many areas on his game that he needs to improve for him to become, you know, even a rotation level player, even a player that's playing at even the level like Sterling Brown is right now. I don't see it. I didn't understand the pick when it was made, and I definitely don't understand it now. I think it was some of the organizations still trying to, you know, reach on, find that Giannis type, you know, long athletic player. And I don't like it. I don't think anyone else likes it, but hindsight's 2020.
Yep. So that's the biggest disappointment. Just want to quick, just kind of get your like 15, 20-second opinions on the Coach Prunty's grade so far for the season. John, if you want to just give me a quick little.
Well, I gave Joe Prunty a B+ so far this season. I think you know, it's great. He's had his record is great so far, but as Andrew alluded to before, the schedule's been you know, incredibly easy. They haven't beat a team over 500, and I guess unless you want to include the Embiid-less 76ers, that win as a win over 500, but I'm going to keep my realism over here and not really count that. So it's been, you know, kind of the opposite of what we saw with Jason Kidd. They're taking care of bad teams. They're getting it done. But with the good teams, you know, they haven't shown that they can get a win with Joe Prunty under the helm. And I think that'll be, you know, a concerning thing to continue to look forward to as we complete the last half or a little bit less than half of the season. Is if he can start to show that he can get these big time wins, like Kidd, you know, did show So, what are you guys' opinions, Dylan? What do you think of Pruney so far?
Drew.
I'd definitely give Joe Prunty a B. Aided by an easy schedule, like I said before, like we all touched on. So I'm not trying to get too excited, but it is nice to see that the Bucks, after Jason Kidd got fired, that the guys look loose. They look like they're having fun. It looks like they're regaining some of their focus. So he definitely deserves credit for righting the ship. The Bucks are taking care of business. He also deserves a ton of credit for that. The Bucks haven't been taking care of business for the last 3 years. So the fact that they're actually taking care of business and beating these bad teams is a refreshing thing to see. But like John just said, no wins against quality opponents. We'll see their first game back on Fridays against the Toronto Raptors. That's an excellent barometer to see where they're at coming out of the break. And 7 of their next 8 games are actually against teams that are over 500. So this stretch of games right here could definitely determine the fate of where Milwaukee lies in terms of seeding when it becomes the end of the season. It's time for playoffs.
Yeah. I'm a little more optimistic. Just kind of not really. I don't really put too much weight into who they're playing. I know that obviously, like, you're gonna have a better chance if you play against Brooklyn or Chicago or something like that. But I gave him an A-. I think it's very cliche and everything, but you play who's out there, who is on your schedule, and that's not his fault. He went out there, got quality wins, took two disappointing losses in the Timberwolves and the Nuggets. But honestly, you can't really ask anything more than what Prunty's done, kind of spurred on at the last moment in an interim role. I don't know. I just think that's probably a solid grade for him then. Yeah. I can't really complain. I can't complain about anything.
I'd agree. I think me and Andrew were a little bit too pessimistic on him. But yeah, I think obviously we haven't noted it yet, but obviously his defensive scheme has changed. And you have to give him, props for that and realizing, but I think anyone would realize that. Nonetheless, he's changed the defensive scheme. The defenses look very good against bad teams, but still, the teams look much better under Prunty. So I'm never gonna get his name right. I'm gonna say Prunty, whatever I see.
As long as we get some wins, then we'll learn how to say his name correctly.
Yeah, right. 3 more wins and I'll learn your name, Coach.
Yeah, right. Well, that was awesome. Thanks, John, for coming on. Do you want to drop your social media? John's a pretty good follow on Twitter, so.
Yeah, I'm at Grandpa Turner. All about Bucks Twitter. So.
Yeah, so check him out. Thanks for coming on, and once again, our podcast is brought to you by the Shepherd Express over at shepherdexpress.com. They got a bunch of cool articles and cool stuff going on nowadays. Some political stuff. Also, a lot of cool stuff going on in Milwaukee. You can look at their This Week in Milwaukee post, events page. There's a lot of cool things going on over the Shepherd Express. And want to thank our sponsor, John E. Drain Real Estate. He's a real estate agent with Realty Executives Integrity in the North Shore of Milwaukee. Sells condos, residential in the greater Milwaukee metro area, as well as in the North Shore region. So you can contact him at 414-745-9377. Look him up on Facebook. He has a well-done Facebook page, reviews of some houses he sold. So if you want to check that out, it'll be posted in the link of this podcast. So you'll be able to check out right away when you click on it on Twitter. We really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. If you'd like to listen to it on SoundCloud and you have an iPhone, you still listen to it on SoundCloud. But if you'd like to subscribe and review us, that'd be awesome. Just trying to take some more steps with the podcast. Hope you guys appreciate what we put out there. I thought the Superlatives were pretty good. Got a big game against Toronto, so we might hop on tomorrow with grades. Hopefully we can get that out. Always check us out at Crim City Central on Twitter, crimcitycentral.com. You can check me at Dylan Piccolo 35. like John, just a bunch of Bucks tweets, just Bucks content we're pushing out. So just really appreciate you listening, and thank you, and go Bucks.
Go Bucks.